When it comes to websites, there's a crucial balance between design and function. I've built hundreds of websites for 6, 7, and 8-figure brands, and I've discovered something important. The most effective websites aren't effective just because they look good or look fancy. They're effective because they were designed strategically, based on the type of business that they are and the role that that website needs to play in the business. Some businesses need websites that showcase stunning visuals and examples of their work, while others need something simple and conversion-focused for a specific outcome. Today, I'm going to show you how to determine what the right type of website is for your business and how to make it so that it accomplishes exactly what your business needs it to do. So first, let's talk about how your website should look. Deciding how a website should look is a little bit like designing the inside of a retail space or maybe like an office that you would bring clients into. It's unlikely that that choice make or break a sale, but it can help position you properly in the eyes of a buyer and maybe smoothen negotiations or establish you as the way you want to be established. I'm going to show you an example. This is Buffer. This is a tool that companies use to manage their social media platforms. This is Sprout. I would describe their product the exact same way. They're a tool businesses use to manage their social media. As you scroll through these two websites, from their design language, it's clear Buffer is trying to appear easy to use, approachable, friendly, fun. They're trying not to scare you away, basically. Sprout is positioning themselves very differently. They're aiming to look powerful, state-of-the-art, upper echelon. They're making no attempt to seem easy to use and friendly. One of these designs isn't better than the other. It's based on who they're targeting and how they want to be positioned in the eyes of that customer. Buffer literally could not be more affordable, whereas Sprout is pretty much priced for power users. And yes, the verbiage and the functionality, and I'm sure there are differences in the product, that all ties into this, but the aesthetic is still playing a role. Could you sell Sprout Social at these price points, but using a design like Buffer? Maybe, but their marketing team decided that it probably wasn't the appropriate choice, and I agree with them. To do this for your brand, all you have to do is go back to that initial idea. What do you want your positioning to be in the eyes of that buyer? Do you want them to think you're cutting edge or old school and tried and true? Do you want them to think of you as expensive or affordable? There's no right answer. It's just the initial lens through which you want a first-time customer to see you. One exercise you can do to flesh this out for yourself is take a few adjectives, like I've done here, and compare them to their opposites on a chart and just put sticky notes in between each category with how you'd like your customer to think of you. When we onboard new clients, we do this for many different categories. I've just got 4 here. It helps us determine what the appropriate way to design their brand is. So now that you've figured out what your website needs to look like, it's time to figure out what your website needs to accomplish when it's doing its job properly. This is going to sound high level at first. Bear with me, I'm going somewhere. Most of you will need your website to do one or more of these 3 things. First, initiate some type of a sales conversation with either a member of your sales team, an AI, or something like that, like basically turning that visitor into a lead. That might mean they pick up the phone and call, they interact with a chat, they fill out a form, they use a booking widget, whatever it is, somehow that visitor gets in touch with a sales rep, real or AI. The second is a user needs to identify the product they need, add it to cart, and check out. This is e-commerce, that's the second one. The third one is just make you look good. For example, if your primary marketing activity is like cold email, you're not driving cold traffic to your website. The marketing and sales process has already initiated through the emails that you're sending. People are just maybe going to your website to see, who's this guy emailing me? Is this company legit? So whichever of those 3 things your website is aiming for, make someone a lead, make someone a customer, or make you look good, you want to make the path to that outcome as simple as possible for the user with as few decisions as possible. Now, if you're in that third category, the is this guy legit category, there's not really any decisions that the user has to make. They're just going to look at the site until they're done looking at it. But if you're in either of those first 2 categories, anytime you're asking someone to make a decision on your website, there needs to be a really good reason. That's because decisions overwhelm and scare customers. According to a study that was done in 2022, if you give customers too many options, they just don't choose anything. They get overwhelmed and overloaded and they back out. One time I was consulting for this guy who owned a large martial arts gym, and his funnel worked like people would find him on Google, they would go to his website, they would request a free trial, and then someone from his team would call them, and then they would book him in for the free trial over the phone. That's basically how the funnel worked. And he was telling me, he's like, Max, I've got all these people who want fitness classes hitting my website, and then they're not requesting a free trial. Like, it's crazy. I can't make it any better than free. I don't know what the problem is. And really, only 2 parts of this funnel have anything to do with the website: the initial landing experience and the process of requesting a trial. His initial landing experience was above average. It was pretty good. We made some tweaks, but that was it. So we took a look at the form, and there was the issue. Along with like the normal name and email and all that questions, there was one question that said, which program do you want to join? Now, this guy sold all kinds of programs. There was MMA, there was boxing, there was Muay Thai, there was grappling, whatever. So you had to get to the form and choose which one you wanted. But what if you're just the mom of some teenager and you're just booking a class for someone? You don't know what type of combat your kid needs to get into. So suddenly your form is triggering this whole research cycle that someone has to go into. Beyond that, even if you are educated, he was using branded terms. So he would say, like, I don't remember the exact ones, but if it was karate, it would be like kickin' karate or bruisin' boxer or whatever. Those are bad ones. But the idea was, it wasn't even like an educated buyer could make the decision. He was triggering a process by which someone had to A, be an expert on which types of combat there are and which one's appropriate for their use case, and B, what are the names of the programs that this company uses to describe them. So it created a ton of friction and decision fatigue at that critical point, causing this part of the funnel to leak. By removing that question, he significantly increased the number of trials and therefore sales that he was able to generate through his online marketing. His website was trying to make someone make a decision that a salesperson needed to guide them through. It was inefficient and incorrectly structured. So once we fixed that, it worked perfectly. Most websites try to do too many things, so they end up doing all of them badly. Instead, I want your website to try and do only what it must do to get a visitor to do what you need them to do. And to be clear, sometimes you do need to apply some friction during the sales and marketing process, and I can talk about that a different time. That's not what was happening in this case. I'll tell you one more story about an e-commerce example, and it plays on the same principle of decision fatigue. We were working with a company that sold custom fitting hot tub covers. You buy like an above ground hot tub, you put it in your backyard, and then winter comes, and in your climate maybe, it gets so cold that you have to cover it, otherwise it'll freeze. And these guys sell the covers that fit all the different models of hot tubs. Customers can easily get that information, but going and taking specific measurements or determining what type of materials they need, that's a much less efficient solution. And making that change, along with the overall redesign we did, had a significant impact on their conversion rate. Quick pause here. If you're listening to this and thinking, geez, Max, that's a lot of work and I don't really know where to get started and I don't really have the time to do it, well, you're in luck. That's a service that I offer. This is actually the main thing that I do with my time is I run a web design agency that does this exact thing for businesses. If you want help making your website into something that is an effective sales and marketing tool, click the link in the description and schedule a time to talk about your website. The third tip I have for you is I want you to optimize for someone who's starting from zero. A website is different from a direct response funnel. You will inevitably have multiple contexts within which people would be viewing your website. So for example, if you're in like a B2B sale, at some point, the finance department's probably going to come look at your website and like make sure that you're legit before they process the invoice to send you the money. If you got a customer support portal, then your website can often be sort of the front door to that interface that they use to get the support they need. So the best play is to start from zero. Assume that the visitor hitting your page has no context on who you are and knows nothing, and you can't go too far wrong. And as an extra bonus, if you speak in more plain language, even if someone does have more background information, the message will land with them more easily. One of my Instagram commenters who wanted me to review their website sent this example over. The main headline, "Design and build your growth and success," tells me essentially nothing. It's a very classic mistake. People will put just some kind of a marketing tagline or the value proposition, but I, as the visitor, don't have enough context to understand what you're talking about. If I dig for a little while, I can find eventually that you do recruiting, only in this sense that you sneak it into this paragraph. Or if I have background information and I know the industry, I might have recognized it from some of the items in the navigation or from the fact that there's 2 call to actions, one for candidates and one for employers. But you don't want me to have to do all of this thinking. That's bad UX, that's bad web design. So first, before we change any text, I'm going to add in a background so that I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. That's much more readable. Instead of design and build your growth success, let's just write recruiting services. And maybe we can even add one value prop and just say recruiting services made simple. I'll come back and clean that up in a second. I will change this into a sub headline. I'm just going to use the H3 tag for now. So recruiting services made simple, and then instead of growth and success, you could put a marketing tagline here like that. That's now more appropriate. Instead, I would rather give better information for the visitor. So let's just say the legal, construction, and architecture industries. That is so much more helpful to the visitor. Now, when I land on this website, I will know whether or not I'm in the right place, regardless of my background information. Now, if later on the page, I want to start getting into things like my value propositions, my differentiators, the visitor will now undoubtedly have enough context to actually understand those points. Whereas before, when it looked like this, if I scroll down and you start telling me about how great you are, I don't know what you're great at. Now, in some industries, like recruiting, this is a very simple exercise to do. But in other industries, especially those where you have maybe a platform that does lots of different things, software companies or other kinds of tech, it can be really challenging. Because if your product does a lot of things for a lot of different people, well, oftentimes you can't really communicate this succinctly in just a few words. At that point, it becomes important to incorporate other elements on the page. Let's go take a look at one of my favorite examples, ClickUp.com. So if you didn't know, ClickUp does a lot of stuff. They do project management, task management. They have like a Slack sort of competitor inside of their ecosystem. So their headline, the Everything App for Work, is about as succinct as you can get when you're describing that sort of thing. But that headline isn't enough on its own for the visitor to be able to picture themselves using the tool. So in the subtext, they give you a few examples, and then the primary image is actually an interactive element that when you select how you'd like to use it, it shows you a screenshot matching the way that you plan on using the product. This is a very high level, extremely creative way to solve what is otherwise a very challenging communication problem. It's always a good idea to see what billion-dollar companies are doing when you're trying to figure out how to communicate better. But for most of the people watching this video, you probably don't have a company like that. So here are a few sample headline structures you can use if you're struggling to come up with something. So I already showed you service name made simple. You can also do solution for audience. So for example, plumbing for commercial buildings. I also like we thing you do. A good example of that, we paint homes and businesses. I'm also a fan of locations top choice for service. That's a great one for any local business that's trying to be found locally for their service. The next thing we want to talk about is your navigation structure. Your nav structure is just the bar across the top of your website that helps people find the pages that they're looking for. And again, this is another subject where you have to remember that your website is different than like a direct response funnel because there's going to be multiple kinds of people coming to your website for different things. And even if someone is visiting your website in that sort of direct transactional lens, unless they're coming from like a Facebook ad, they probably are all going to be looking for different things when they hit your site. So what you want to do is you want to use the language that a customer might use to describe what they're looking for when they get to that page. I'll give you a quick example. I was working with a roofer who had a navigation that looked like this. When you landed on his site, you saw his logo on the left, and then About Us, Blog, Our Services, Contact Us, Reviews, and FAQs. This is a fine list of things to have on your website. There's nothing wrong with having those things. But put yourself in the shoes of the visitor. If you're looking for roofing services, how many of the things on that list do you care about? You probably care about one of their services, depending on why you're on their website. Contact Us is relevant. And reviews, you're probably not looking for reviews, but reviews are helpful. And FAQs might be helpful too. So what we ended up doing was basically scrapping this entire navigation. We took the two main areas of service that he offers, which are commercial services and residential services. We put commercial first because that's his main audience. That's mainly who he's trying to serve. Instead of calling it residential roof services, we called it home roof services because when you're communicating with B2C, you always have to kind of dial your language down a little bit. We added before and after because I had seen on other roofing websites that was an important page for them to have. And locations we serve because that was actually the main question on the FAQs page that people were looking for. The data showed us that. Now you might be thinking, Max, what about the reviews and the FAQs? You said that those were important. Yes, we actually structure the page around FAQs. So when someone is scrolling through a page on a website, each of the sections are designed to answer the most frequently asked questions that a visitor has. Plus, we include an FAQ section at the bottom of the page. And for reviews, what we found is that most people don't actually click on the reviews tab at the top of the website, but Them seeing reviews as they scroll through the website does improve conversion rates. We just kind of sprinkle in our proof in reviews and in other formats as people scroll through the website in order to get that lift. But I'm not saying we get rid of these pages. You still want to have your about page, you still want to have your blog. All these things should still exist. We just put those links in the footer. So if you want your prospects to have a great first impression of your business and have a smooth, optimized experience when they're trying to transact with you, I encourage you to follow the steps in this video, or if you want this done for you, you can book a call using the link below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.